Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time, the lash out from the Republican Party against the massive $1.9 trillion stimulus package has begun. In this video, I'll give you some of the key comments from important Republicans today in an important press briefing. And I want you to watch this video all the way through to the end because I'll give you my analysis on the bottom line and what this actually means to the $1,400 stimulus checks. It's very clear that the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is not at all happy with this. He thinks it's too much money. And the use of the phrase liberal wish list, radical agenda, left-wing agenda is something you're going to hear over and over again from the Republicans, not only in this press conference, but also in all future press conferences until the American Rescue Plan is passed. Let's take a look at the first segment where the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says this is dramatically more money than we need at this juncture. And he said that, hey, Republicans worked with Democrats in the past to pass all the bipartisan stimulus, including the CARES Act. But now the Biden administration just wants to go it alone. He said that President Biden, essentially projected the spirit of unity, but they're essentially going it alone through the budget reconciliation process. So you can see that the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is not happy at all. And guess what? As far as Chuck Schumer is concerned, I don't think Chuck Schumer cares very much about what Mitch McConnell said, because I am going to do another video highlighting what Chuck Schumer said and the significance of that to the stimulus plan as well. But first, let's take a look at what the Senate Minority Leader said about the size of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. Let's watch.
Recounting that every COVID package we passed last year, we did on a bipartisan basis. There was almost no opposition to most of those bills. And I was hoping the new administration, particularly given the president discussing so frequently being a moderate, would choose to take a different path, particularly when you look at the numbers. A 50-50 Senate, a narrow majority in the House. I would think, looking at that, your conclusion would be maybe we ought to start on a bipartisan basis. But alas, that is not the case. As you know, 10 of our members actually went down, met with the president, and talked about a more narrow, targeted approach. The message was that they were not interested in doing it that way. They're going to try to muscle us through on a totally partisan basis. And I think I can safely speak for most of my members that we think this is dramatically more money than is required at this particular juncture. It also includes a number of things that have absolutely nothing to do with COVID relief. And so it will be controversial. And we expect, obviously, we'll get this package over from the House, and we'll deal with it accordingly through the reconciliation process here in the Senate.
Yep, you saw it. I don't think he's very happy. The number 2 Republican, the Senate Minority Whip from South Dakota, John Thune, is also not happy with the American Rescue Plan. In fact, he spoke right after Mitch McConnell, and he said that Democrats want to fulfill a liberal wish list. And he said, this is $1.9 trillion we simply don't have. Again, let's highlight these important comments from these Republican senators, and I'll tell you at the end my analysis of this entire situation and what impact this actually has to the stimulus checks. Let's roll the tape and hear from the Republican Minority Whip from South Dakota, John Thune, the number 2 most powerful Republican in the United States Senate after Mitch McConnell. Let's roll the tape.
Which is why I wish the Senate Democrats would work in a serious way with us in trying to come up with solutions that will actually help us continue to battle the disease. Instead, they seem bent on a path, as the leader pointed out, that consists largely of trying to fulfill a liberal wish list. If you look at many of the components of their bill, for example, the amount that they spent on public health only constitutes about 10% of the entire $1.9 trillion. 95% of the money that they put toward education wouldn't be spent until after 2021, in other words, 2022 through 2028. Hardly seems like an emergency if you're not be able to get the money out there quickly. And obviously there have been Republicans who've expressed an interest in trying to work with the Democrats. So far they have rejected those efforts. It seems to me, as the leader pointed out, that this has been an attempt by the Democrats to do this at 51 votes After we did 5 coronavirus bills last year under regular order at the 60-vote threshold in the Senate in a bipartisan way, they have decided first bill out of the gate this year, coronavirus bill, which is, again, is way too big to start with and has a lot of questionable pieces to it. They decided to try and do it at 51 votes, I think, which tells you that this is never about trying to get a bipartisan bill that deals with the virus, but rather using the pandemic for political gain. They seem a lot more interested in making sure that there are taxpayer dollars allocated to Planned Parenthood than they are about getting kids back into the classroom. It's $1.9 trillion that we don't have. It's borrowed money, and it's going to be spent in a lot of ways that, frankly, have nothing to do with the emergency at hand. And I hope that, as the leader pointed out, Republicans will all stand against it.
And if you've been following my channel, I did tell you that Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, there he is. What's up, Rick? Would not be very happy with this. In fact, we could expect Rick Scott on television, on Fox News and all these other networks. And Rand Paul, the Republican from Kentucky, is going to be pretty unhappy as well. Well, lo and behold, Rick Scott did speak at the same press conference as Mitch McConnell and John Thune, and he clearly was not happy about the massive cash giveaway as far as he's concerned in the American Rescue Plan. Rick Scott said that the Biden administration has opened borders and closed schools. Yep, he said they've opened borders and closed schools. Just one in a series of pretty sharp comments from the senator from Florida, the Republican. Let's roll the tape and hear from Rick Scott.
In 4 weeks, the Biden administration has been known for 2 things: open borders and closed schools. First, they said that they had to follow the science to open up the schools. Well, the CDC has said we could open these schools safely. Then they said they need money. Well, last year, Congress allocated $68 billion for K-12 education, and approximately $4 billion of it has been spent. So it clearly is not waiting for money. It's just basically Democrats and the teachers union don't care about our students. In the new bill, they want to spend over $120 billion, and 95% of it will not be spent this year to open schools. It'll be spent in the future to open schools, 22 to 28. So this new stimulus package is not going to do anything to open our schools. They need to decide to open our schools. And also on top of that, there's no money to secure our border. So Democrats don't care about our family safety, and they clearly don't care about our kids' education.
Yeah, they're not very happy, as you can tell. And towards the end of this press conference, the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell took over the mic and he said that this is a totally partisan approach to stimulus relief. He said that, hey, the Republicans again worked together with the Democrats to pass all the stimulus proposals so far, but now the Democrats are essentially going it alone. And this is part of the frustration from Mitch McConnell because he's no longer the Senate Majority Leader. You know, and I know that if Mitch McConnell was a Senate Majority Leader, and again, this goes back to the Senate runoff races in Georgia, which were won by the 2 Democrats, John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. If we had Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, we wouldn't even be having this discussion because McConnell would not allow the $1.9 trillion package to even get a vote on the floor of the House. He didn't do that in a Republican-controlled Senate, and so he's definitely, he's definitely made his intentions clear. Let's roll the tape and hear from the Senate Minority Leader.
What I didn't remember was that he was a moderate. And so what we have seen here at the beginning of this administration is pretty far left across the board. And the best evidence of it that's currently before us is the way they've chosen to take a totally partisan approach to COVID relief. Totally different from the way it was addressed by the Republican majority Senate last year, the Democrat House last year, and the Republican president last year. So I'm interested in what we're doing now and looking forward.
And in the final segment, McConnell lamented over the fact that this package is as big as the CARES Act. And he said, hey, when we passed the CARES Act, the economy was in a downward spiral. Now things are starting to get better. According to Mitch McConnell, people are getting their jobs back. The vaccinations are increasing. The economy is starting to look up. These are the things that he said. And he said, why are we doing a package as large as the CARES Act, which was done almost a year ago when this crisis just began? Mitch McConnell said, I'm sure everyone would like to get a check, but the American people should understand everything that has been proposed. Okay, so I have a question for you. Do you want to understand everything that has been proposed, or do you want a check in the mail? My money is on the fact that you want your money. Look, folks, at the end of the day, no one's going to remember bipartisanship. No one's going to remember cooperation. No one really cares about budget reconciliation. I can assure you that you'll forget about budget reconciliation, and probably I'll forget about budget reconciliation in a couple of months. What matters is getting a check in the mail. We need quick cash now so we can pay our bills, so we can make rent, so we can keep the lights on, so we can put food on the table. People need cash now, and people are resorting to all kinds of unsavory loans right now in order to be able to get money. But Mitch McConnell wants, I quote, the American people should understand everything that has been proposed. Let's roll the tape and hear from the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell.
Well, I'm sure everybody would love to get a check, but they haven't yet learned about what else is in it. And part of our job as the substantial minority, remember we're in a 50-50 Senate here, is to make sure the American people fully understand what's being proposed. Is it a good idea to stick all of these extraneous matters into it? We were open, at least 10 of us, went down to the White House, discussed with the president something more narrow and targeted to the conditions that we find today. Look at the size of this package. It's the size of the CARES Act. We passed that in March of 2020. This is not 2020. There are hopeful signs that the economy is coming back. Vaccines are being distributed. The statistics are going in a better direction. We're in favor of targeting this relief to the conditions that we find today and looking forward, not backward.
So, folks, interesting comments from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, from John Thune, the number 2 Senate Republican, and Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, about the massive $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. As you know, right now the plan is going from a package or a proposal, and it's being drafted into law, and it will be voted on in the House this week. Next week, we can expect a lot of argument about this in the Senate, but it will pass the Senate in some way, shape, or form because the Democrats have a razor-thin majority in the Senate, and then it'll go to the desk of the president for signature. And once the president signs it, it becomes law. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new, please click the like button. Please share this video with friends and family because it really helps out the YouTube algorithm. And also, please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I really appreciate you watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. And I want to tell you that my analysis out of this entire situation is that the Republicans can say what they want. The Republicans can complain all they want and can go on all the television networks that they want. But this bill, because of the Democratic majority, thanks to the tie-breaking vote cast by Vice President Kamala Harris, this bill, because of the Democratic razor-thin majority, is going to pass the House and the Senate, but it is going to have its fair share of controversy amongst the Republicans. But as far as the American people are concerned, I think most American people are okay with this. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video.